Hello guys and girls, Raj here, back with another video. Merry Christmas and happy holidays. So a lot of you guys and girls are probably off this coming week, and then from end of January and February, hiring is gonna start on full force. So in this video, I'm going to specifically talk about step-by-step skills required for these cloud jobs. DevOps engineer / architect, solutions architect, Sysadmin or security or governance engineer / architect, and software developer. As always, I have given the timestamps in the video. And before we get started, a little bit about me for those who are new to the channel. My name is Raj. I'm a senior specialist architect working at AWS. And previously, I was a distinguished cloud architect at Verizon, also developer. And before that, I was a mainframer at JP Morgan Chase. I'm also a published Udemy and Pluralsight author and instructor. And in my free time, I enjoy playing some video games. I am going to categorize the skills in 3 different categories. One is must-have. So you should have these skills if you are applying for the role. Second category is highly recommended. It is going to make you very valuable, and if there are multiple candidates with the same skills, and if you have this highly recommended skill, you will be given priority. And number 3 is low return. So this kind of skills requires lots of hands-on and studying, but they have very low impact on interviews. And generally, you can learn this once you get into the job. So the first role, which is the most popular role, is DevOps engineer / architect. What this job encompasses is you will have to automate different processes such as infrastructure like spinning up services. You have to automate the software release and software delivery. And you also have to automate remediation in case something goes wrong. Another responsibility is monitoring and reporting from the pipeline, from the processes, etc. And the superpower will be, this is a super versatile role, and you can branch out to other roles if needed from this role. Personally, I actually started in this role. So this role, I really like this role. So let's look into the skill tree. I have given the preferred sequence, but you can change the order as you see fit. So you should start with the infrastructure as code. So if you are going for AWS, DevOps, architect, or engineer, you should learn CloudFormation, and you can pick your infrastructure as code for GCP and Azure, or you can learn Terraform. So you do not need to learn both CloudFormation and Terraform to apply to these positions. So once you have the concept and you know one, then you can pick up the other ones as well. The next important thing is you need to know Git commands. As a DevOps architect, you need to trigger your pipeline anytime or sometimes a code is merged. You need to know how to create branches, clone it, merge it, how to do pull requests, etc. Then move into DevOps services. So you could learn either cloud-specific services. For example, if you are going for AWS, then you could learn code commit, code build, code deploy, and code pipeline. Or you can learn Jenkins or GitLab. Again, you do not need to learn all 3 for applying to this job. Because once you know one of these, the other ones will be very easy for you to learn. All right, next is highly recommended that you actually know how to deploy DevOps pipelines for a virtual machine, like you are deploying code in EC2, and also code in microservices. So it could be you're deploying an API with the backend code and the API gateway. Those, if you can demonstrate that you actually deployed some pipeline, and it could be in your personal account, that's fine. If you know the flow, the design, and the actual hands-on, this will be golden. Next, if you can learn relevant technology, that is highly recommended. So you can mix and match depending on your interest. So you should have a basic understanding of virtual machines such as EC2 for AWS, container concepts, and serverless like Lambda API Gateway. Again, you can mix and match because it will be impossible to master all this in a month. And next is a cloud certification. This one you guys and girls probably know. Note that this cloud certification is only handy to get you in the interview. Once you are in the interview, you have to demonstrate that you have these must-have skills. So next is the low return corner case DevOps services. So I have seen a lot of times people spend a lot of time on services like Elastic Beanstalk, AWS CodeStar, the newly won AWS Proton. Most of the organizations use the code pipeline, Jenkins, GitLab. You do not need to know these corner cases. And if you demonstrate that you know the cloud-specific code pipeline, Jenkins, GitLab, the interviewer will know that you can pick up this Elastic Beanstalk and other corner case DevOps services. Similarly, no need to dive deep into Ansible. It is important that you know what is Ansible and how you can integrate it with the DevOps services, but you do not need to know Ansible, Chef, Puppet in detail. And this is based on the job requirement that I analyzed to make this video. So most of the DevOps jobs do not require you to must have Ansible, Chef, Puppet, etc. All right, let's move on to Solutions Architect role. So this is also a very popular role. Responsibility of this role is creating design based on organization priority, as in, is the organization trying to do lift and shift, or lift, modernize, shift, or whole modernization and then shift, etc. You also have to do educate and advocate. So you have to go into strategic meeting, influence and educate people on the design. You have to run workshop and demos. This role, superpower, is also very versatile. You can branch out to other roles. So my current role is this one. Even though I started with the DevOps Architect Engineer, my current job deals with being a Solutions Architect. So must have for this role is you have to know compute, network, and storage services, the cloud specific. So for example, for AWS, for compute, you should know the differences and different use cases, when to use what between EC2, container like EKS, Elastic Kubernetes Service, Lambda, ECS, etc. Network, you have to know how VPCs work, public, private, etc. And storage is super important. So if you want to become a DevOps architect, DevOps engineer, you do not need to know anything about really network and storage that much. But as a solutions architect, you need to know different database options. What is the difference between RDS, DynamoDB, when to use what, etc. Next, you need to study and be comfortable doing whiteboards on reference designs and parameters. By parameter, I mean, think of 5 pillars of architecture for AWS. If some application wants to have security as the number one priority, so how do you change the design? If some application wants to have performance as their highest priority, how do you change the design? What kind of parameter would you consider, etc. So look up reference design for specific stuff. Do not need to study all the reference design, so you can pick 10 maybe, maybe a streaming solution, a backend API, database, etc. Next must have, and a lot of people actually ignore this, is presentation. Remember, solutions architect won't have anyone reporting to them, right? But you have to influence the whole organization or a big team, their higher management. So you have to have presentation skills to explain something in a simple terms, and you should be able to change your level. If you are talking to a director or executive director, you have to present in such a way that you cannot go too deep. They don't care technically how much you know. You have to explain them the business value and the high level design. And when you talk with the developers, think of 20, 30 developers you are talking with. You have to change your level and present it in such a way that they get influenced and buy into your design. So these are 3 must-haves for solutions architect. Next, highly recommended is the DevOps component. You should know a little bit of CloudFormation and the pipelines for some of the reference design, but you do not need to know super deep in CloudFormation. Like, you should have a working knowledge and you should know how to look up the CloudFormation reference and deploy something. Like if someone gives you a design or you come up with a design and you're trying to do a demo or POC, you should be able to go pick up CloudFormation commands and stitch together the template. Next, highly recommended is you should know at least one of these languages for demo and proof of concept: Python, Node.js, or Go. And last one, highly recommended, is cloud certification. And the low return is chasing shiny stuff. So I have seen this a lot actually. I'll give a couple examples. For example, there is a lot of buzz about being an AI ML architect because I guess it's like prestigious. But you have to do the groundwork for that. And you yourself know whether you are fit for it or no. So being an AI ML solutions architect requires diving deep into a lot of mathematical formulas. There is no way around it, right? You cannot just learn the AI-based services that does stuff for you. For example, like recognition. You have to know SageMaker and you have to know how to write machine learning code, how to select algorithm, how to clean up the data, all that stuff. So if you are not inclined to do all that learning, then no need to chase that. However, if you have a math background, you like it, not just the status, like you actually like it and you want to learn it, then go for it. Similarly, don't spend time on like blockchain services and stuff. So what skill did I learn? So I learned CloudFormation, deep dive, hands-on, all that stuff. I did not learn Terraform till later. I did the Git command, super important. And then I actually did Jenkins. I learned cloud-specific things after I got into the job. I did not learn it to get the interview. I learned Jenkins, did hands-on, got into the job, then learned cloud-specific stuff. DevOps pipelines, I only learned VM while going to the interview, but again, I was a DevOps architect engineer like 4.5 years back. So now you probably need to know microservices as well. Going into the role, I knew virtual machines and serverless. So serverless was just up and coming. So I learned that. I learned container way after. The thing I really liked about being a DevOps architect is you give tangible output. Like you are creating CloudFormation templates, you are creating pipelines. So it is not just going and influencing people, you actually have an output, and that actually made me feel very productive. And I actually learned a lot, had a lot of fun in this role. And then before I switched to solutions architect, I had to work a lot on my presentation skill. Generally, I was a developer. So generally developers are a little weak on presentation. So I practiced a lot, and I'm from India and I have this funny accent. A lot of you guys and girls think it's fake. It's not. It's stuck in between India and America, and I'm actually married to an American. So my accent is stuck in between. Nothing I can do about it. But thank you for watching. Regardless of that, I know a lot of you guys and girls think it's like fake or something. Anyway, and then I learned all this compute, storage, and network. And then I learned reference design, but specific to the company. Like I learned how to do a regular 3-tier architecture, API-driven reference designs. And then I actually learned Python before I became a DevOps architect. I was doing a little bit of machine learning. That's when I knew that I could not be a good machine learning architect. I have to put considerable effort, and I had a lot more to learn on other areas. So that's how I learned Python. Okay, so moving on to sysadmin, security, governance engineer, and architect. So this role entails you have to evaluate processes, you have to evaluate new services, the pipelines, whether the pipeline is secure, compliant, application configurations, whether something is kept open to be accessed by the whole world, infrastructure, whether infrastructure is secure. And you also have to automate some processes such as compliance enforcement, like what if something goes wrong, how do you shut a service down, how do you alert, how do you remediate, etc. Superpower is you are the big daddy. Like it is super critical. And then with the cloud jobs coming in, there are a lot of requirement for this role, a lot of good future as well. So if you are someone who likes security, you should look into this role. So must have for this is you need to know Linux bash commands and scripting. Like you need to know how to bring up a server, how to run different commands in them, how to disable certain commands so that users cannot run those, how to create different user groups in Linux, etc. You should also know infrastructure as code, because the input to you would be the DevOps pipeline that the DevOps architect or the application team created, and you need to know whether that pipeline is secure or not. So you have to have some basic knowledge, because you have to create the compliance process that will go and check their template whether some security group is open or too permissive, etc. Next thing you need to know is security and governance services, and this is cloud specific. So for AWS, for example, you need to know IAM, KMS, and some other services relevant to security, such as MESI, guard duty, etc. And for governance, you should know control tower, organization, service catalog. Moving on to highly recommended. So as a security or governance engineer or architect, you need to automate stuff as well. Remember the scripting thing? So generally how companies run it today is they will write a Lambda function in Python, and instead of the bash script running in Linux, they will schedule this Lambda, because it's way more cost effective and easier to do than the Linux bash commands. However, you still need to know Linux bash commands and scripting, but if you know a little bit of Python and Lambda, you will be super valuable. Next is security checklist. So when you are learning these security and governance services, like the thing you're trying to learn is what to look for to know whether a particular application is secure or not secure, right? Like you are not just learning IAM and KMS and guard duty in vacuum. You are learning from an application standpoint, like if a specific security group or IAM role is too permissive, how to look for that. So you should have a security checklist for applications that's running on VM or container or serverless, and so that you know what things to look for, what questions to ask the application team. Lastly, you should have some security certification. This could be cloud specific, such as security specialty, or you could get a CompTIA or something. So one area a lot of folks are a little weak is network security, like green zone, red zone, all that stuff. Generally in interviews, people focus a lot on application and data security and not too much on the networking part. So networking part could be complicated if you are not coming from a network background. So don't need to dive deep into the network security to get into the job. Last one is software developers. These are the superheroes. Like if you think about it, at the end of the day, they get the job done. If your company doesn't have these folks, no project will be done. Like if you have no architect, maybe the design will be crappy, but if you don't have any software developer, nothing could be done. So one thing is I have heard this question that, Raj, I am a developer and I want to become an architect to get into the cloud. Listen, if you are a software developer coding on-prem stuff, you do not need to become an architect to get into cloud, because there is a lot of demand and very, very high salary for cloud software developer. So this is what you need to do. So cloud compatible coding you already have. So you need to know a programming language that is compatible with cloud, or like most applications in the cloud run their codes in. For example, Python, Java, Node.js, Go, etc. So if you are in mainframe and you only know COBOL, So you have to teach yourself one of these languages. So you can pick Python, Node.js, but you need to know one language where that cloud application is written in. If you already know this, you already won the battle. Only thing you need to learn is how to run and test code in cloud. Let's say, for example, you need to know how to spin up EC2, deploy your code in it manually. No need to know DevOps pipeline to get the job, and how to run it, how to execute it. Similarly, for container, for Lambda, same thing. Highly recommended the DevOps components, like if you know CloudFormation, pipeline related to your application, super useful. Cloud certification, but this is not as much of a big factor for software developer as they are for the architects. Low return is algorithm overload. You should just study the algorithms that's relevant to the job you are going for. So how do you know what algorithm or what actually questions to prepare for? This is applicable to all these roles. So what I did, and I would highly recommend, is you in the beginning look up the job requirements in LinkedIn. Like look up a few of the companies in your area that are hiring and what kind of requirements they have. Let's say for DevOps Architect or Soft Solutions Architect. Then for that company, go to Glassdoor and look up sample questions. And then study those. And then you will be well equipped to get the job. So this is what I personally followed, and that helped me a lot. That's the video, guys and girls. Let me know if you have any question that I didn't go over, or any particular question about your role. And if you want to help this channel grow, please click that big fat like button and subscribe. And I'll see you guys and girls in the next video. Bye.